Greetings and salutations to the pathetic human race. My name is Albert Wesker, and welcome to the Infinite Ammo Syndicate podcast. 7 minutes. 7 minutes is all we can spare to play with you.
Infinite ammo.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Infinite Ammo Syndicate podcast. Today we have an interview with Mr. Connor Fogarty. So, Connor, could you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, I'm Connor Fogarty, and I am a voice actor, I suppose. I'm from Portland, Oregon, but I'm based out of LA, and I never know how to introduce myself, as we're finding out right now.
Well, we had a
Thanks for
riveting
having me.
we had a riveting discussion about accents earlier before the podcast, so that was pretty entertaining.
Mm-hmm. We
So
can talk this whole time about that if you really want to. No, but
I think it's better to delve into the questions, but first we have our panelists here. So I want to introduce Black Shadow.
Yeah, evening everyone. How are you all keeping? Hopefully fairly well. Black Shadow here. Looking forward for a good interview here. Should be a good chat.
Kaneki.
Just another day in the Bronx.
And the weather feels nice, so that's pretty good.
It's cold here.
Next up is
jealous.
I'm so glad that it's cold now because the summer is really killing me. But next up is Mr. Silver.
Hello there guys, Silver back again, and looking forward to speaking to our guests, so thanks for having me.
Austin.
Yo, it's me, Austin. I'm back again. First time gonna do this type of podcast, so I'm very excited and nervous at the same time.
Oh, there's nothing to fear.
Unless he taps into his
yes,
inner
Mr. Wesker.
Yes, unless he taps into his inner Wesker, then I think we better be fearing a lot.
There'll be big problems there.
Oh no, I don't need 7 minutes.
7 minutes. Yep.
See, it's already perfect. So I like to start with the first question. I want to start this interview as an introduction. Can you tell the audience about yourself and the roles you have done within voice acting?
Sure. Yeah. So I guess I said I'm from the Pacific Northwest. So I started out doing voiceover and on camera and I guess theater in college. But I got my professional start kind of working both in the Portland and Seattle scenes. So I went to school in Seattle and then I moved back home to Portland, but I'd like bus or drive up to Seattle for like a year. I felt like almost every other week, and I'd like crash for a few days. So I was kind of living part-time almost in both cities. I'd text a college friend, go, hey, can I crash on your couch for a few days or air mattress? So I kind of would just slum it out that way. And, so I did like some voiceovers for like, Amazon, some like web series stuff. I did some on camera, indie films, an episode of Portlandia, stuff like that. And then I moved down to LA near the end of 2018. And then about a year later, I got my agent. And I did like I guess I can talk about it now. I did this like Facebook commercial that was on for a while, it's for like groups, so it was like these basset hounds. It played a ton in like 2019, but most people would know me from like video game stuff. So I've been obviously Wesker, which I'm sure we'll get into most recently, but anyone who's an Atlas fan, I was Hikawa in the remaster of Shin Megami Tensei 3. Those who don't know SMT, it's kind of the same multiverse as Persona. There's probably people that know how that all works better than I do, for sure. I've done some voices in like World of Warcraft, some little bits here and there in the Shadowlands DLC. Like there's that anyone who plays that, there's like a tutorial island, and there's the big bad of the tutorial island is named Gorgroth, and I voiced him, or rather, shouted and throat ripped as him. And I've done like, some like stuff in Final Fantasy VII Remake. God, what else? Some mobile games, Seven Nights 2 on Valder. I did the anime Vampire in the Garden. I've done some dubbing stuff like that. I should have come a little more prepared here. There's stuff that's coming up that I'm avoiding talking about, but yeah, I mean, yeah, so a lot of little bits and pieces, and then some named characters, and more to come for sure, especially lately. But I'll be excited to talk about. I'm in the next God of War. Can't say much about that, but I am in that. That was a very rambling answer. I'm sure you'll get used to that real quick, but yeah.
Oh, no. I say discuss and ramble away. I think that makes the podcast 10 times more interesting, to be honest.
SMT hype, that's right.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
It's Yeah.
And God of War for me, because I'm heavily looking forward to that game, so I can't wait to play
it. Yeah, I know. I didn't start playing it until like I jumped around consoles growing up. We had a PS2 first, my brother and I, and then we got a Wii, and then we got when I was in high school, we got a 360. So like I think I wasn't really playing like M-rated games in grade school. And then by the time I had an Xbox. So I never really got to play God of War. I didn't actually play the God of War 2018 game until I was like in the middle of recording for Ragnarok. And I knew how big it was, and I was planning on playing the game. I just was backed up on other games. And I was like, well, I got to play it now. And I was just like, now I see why people say this is like one of the best games out there. Because like the combat's so good, the story's great, how it's like all that like oneer kind of camera, like you're watching the whole progress of the game, and you're not like missing any moment of the story. And just that crunchy AF combat. I mean, it's all great. So I'm hyped.
So we're gonna move on to the next question. Shadow, could you read that off, please?
Yeah, by all means. It's a fairly simple one. What motivated you to pursue a career in voice acting?
That is a good question. Because I meet so many people who want to do it, or maybe offhandedly want to do it. Because like as a kid, I had more. Well, first I wanted to be an astronaut, which is harder than being a voice actor. So I've become more realistic. No, but like I don't know. I wanted to be like a science teacher in like a middle school or something, or I don't even know what. Yeah, I'm seeing the astronaut thing on the screen there. But then in high school, I picked up bass guitar, and I wanted to be a musician. But I also was like doing impressions. I'd watch like the soundboard prank calls on YouTube. I spent so many hours watching those, and this ridiculous YouTube poops and stuff like that. And I just would imitate them. And I got pretty good at that. And people are like, well, you should be like a voice actor. And I kind of was like, yeah, maybe when I'm like my rock star career, I could be like Flea from Red Hot Chili Peppers. Like, maybe I could like voice, guess like he's done voices and some stuff too. I'm like, in the off season, I could do just, like it'd be some offhanded career. But then I think around when I was like 17, I was like, well, maybe I should scale down the rock star dreams. And I think there was like, I finally did a high school play my senior year. I did some plays in middle school, and I liked it, but I was just kind of playing like polite 10-year-old boys in it because I was a polite 12-year-old boy. Not a lot of range, but where there's interest in like voices and like finding myself kind of hooked on performing for people, despite being a shy kid, I signed up to audition for a play, and I got one of the leads. It's Arsenic and Old Lace, if anyone knows that. It's like a play from the 40s. But I got to play Dr. Yeah, I got to play Dr. Einstein, which he's not Albert Einstein, but it's kind of part of the joke. He's Herman Einstein, but he's like the right-hand guy of this serial killer in this family. and I got to do a kooky German accent. I jumped my voice up like an octave, and I loved it. And I got a lot of like people telling me like, "Whoa, I didn't know you like did that," because I was like so shy in high school. And I got such a rush out of it, and I was like, maybe I should like do the voiceover thing, because I played video games. I liked, you know, cartoons, and looking at like IMDb, I'd go on IMDb and go, whoa, that guy's that guy? John DiMaggio is Bender and he's Marcus Phoenix? Huh? And I think that kind of mystified me. So around 18, I read D. Bradley Baker's website, iwannabeavoiceactor.com. I read the whole thing and I went, either this is going to scare me off or it's going to challenge me and inspire me. And I read all of it. It took a long time, and it would take even longer now. And I was like, okay, yeah, I want to do this. And I kind of just set towards it ever since, even in college, and made sure I was performing or doing something that could help lead me on this path. And yeah, I don't know. That was it. Addicted to performing, even if I can be shy at times.
I think having just that sort of tenacity to do voice work and think about range, because I always find it like very, very cool that someone could do just multiple voices on the fly and they didn't even know that they had it in them, or they can embody the character like just like that. So that's one of the things that's really cool to me, is when people find a variety of different things to do in voice work.
Yeah. Totally. And that's something that I wanted to, you know, because it was so freeing. Because, like, you know, I was, especially like in high school, I looked like 8 years old. I didn't have to shave till I was almost 17. And that was like a every 2 month sort of deal.
Indeed.
I mean, even now, my facial hair growing ability is not so great. But like, you know, I always was kind of baby faced, and I always felt like my voice didn't really match my appearance at all. So I liked the freedom of that, and I did on camera too, and I did theater, and you know, in theater, when you're in high school or college, everyone's around the same age, give or take, you know, 2 or 3 years. So, like, someone's got to play the older person, even though everyone's the same age. You know, in college especially, I would play the more mature characters because I think it was just how my voice sounded. But then once I'm out of college, I'm back to playing, like, you know, I could have been 22 and people would think I looked like 16. So I was back to playing like reading for high schoolers again with like a, you know, weirdly kind of, you know, even if my voice didn't really, or my speech patterns didn't really fit what they thought I looked like. So that was kind of frustrating. So voiceover was freeing. But even in voiceover, when there's a big pool of people, some people you could theoretically, again, I'm rambling, you could theoretically, you know, have a big vocal range, but there's going to be things you're more natural at and than others. So, you know, I've often played a lot of smug intellectual types, cough, cough, Wesker, or Hikawa, or like big yelling authority figures, or kind of like wisecracking guys. That's like the big three. I've played other things too, but you're going to find even then there's going to be some reoccurring roles and strong suits there. So that even comes up in voiceover, but still it's a lot more freeing than on camera for sure, which is still great, and I enjoy that too. But yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna move to the next question. Silver, could you read question number 3?
Yes, of course, of course. If you had the opportunity to audition for one dream role, then which character would you like to be? Tell us why that role caters to your ambition.
You know, it's funny because ever since getting an agent, I've like had, you know, auditions for some dream franchise, or at least you suspect, because it's all under code names and there's NDAs. So I will be, you know, I won't tell you what I have and haven't read for, but there's things you go, oh my God, it's this game. Or some of it's like out now. But God, you know, like there's franchises that as a kid that I was obsessed with, and you know, like I was really into Transformers as a kid. Star Wars, of course. I'm still a big Star Wars fan, and so God, like I mean, anything like that, you know, even just to play like some Imperial officer, that'd be dope. Or like Mass Effect, if they get those back up and running again. Let's you know what I'm gonna say, if I get to give an answer, to be like a party member in Mass Effect, like a squad member, because those games, you know, I was a fan of video games, but I think the storytelling in that kind of blew my mind like mid high school when I finally picked those games up. They'd been out for a bit, but I played that first Mass Effect, and just the story and how you can interact with squad members, and some of them can die. You know, I just think something like that. So to be Garrus 2, that would be pretty amazing. Or to be the villain of that would be spectacular. So I'll say that. That's what I'm feeling today.
Yeah,
Meaty roles. Very meaty roles.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, just I don't know, just those characters, and everyone kind of loves them for different reasons. And yeah, I mean, Keith Farley, the voice of Thane Krios in 2, was kind of a mentor to me when I came down. I was taking his classes and stuff. He's a great guy. And we could just sit and chat about just random stuff for hours. But I'd do his like workouts and Keith Farley, yeah, he's a great guy, and you know, I'd trick him into doing the Thane voice every now and then, just like,
No, that's awesome. Honestly, that's super awesome because I love Thane. He's like one of my favorite party members in Mass Effect.
Thane Krios, yeah.
Oh, jeez.
To see the real guy do it, you're like, yes. What was that line you said again? He's like, oh yes, well, you know, it's, you know, there's that sort of like that gravel to it. That's, you know,
Yeah.
super cool.
Anybody in that series is to either be a villain or a protagonist or a party member in that series would, I imagine, would be a real blessing. Because
like Fred Tatasciore is I could talk about Mass Effect for ages, but like Fred Tatasciore as Saren in the first one, that's one of my favorite roles of his. Just the kind of, because you learn more and more, it's like, you know, I think he's wrong, but like I understand where he's coming from. But he's also, you know, indoctrinated. But and just the kind of subtlety of that character. And then also just I know there's like one scene where he talks, but the scene with Sovereign, when you first talk to Sovereign in the first game, that's one of my favorite like story moments in a game, period. The whole Vermeer mission is wow, yeah.
One of the first times. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I didn't really have anything to say there. Go ahead.
I'm just going to say one of the first times he spoke in that game where he was all like, Nihilus. You just get a shiver running down your spine.
Nihilus. Yeah. Indeed. The council thought you could use my help. Why did I make him British?
Excellent.
I just love voice acting in general, just the art of it and just the aspect of it. It's just a huge, it's influence on me because I play Dungeons and Dragons and I like to DM, and so I just do a bunch of characters, a bunch of voices, and like whenever they meet like a tavern and like the tavern keeps this old like, oh, what can I get you? Can I get you an ale? And like I just love doing voices to myself. Yeah. It's great practice, and I love creating characters because then it becomes improv, and I love to improv.
Well, that's exactly.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was just
gonna say, it's just like, you know, it feels natural at times, and when it feels natural, it just feels so good just to get into a character that just comes from the spring of your mind. I've had so many awesome just ideas of just abyssal creatures that are just like creepy and just all over the place and just like, I can see you, and just create these awesome creepy dark tones to like very, I'm a joyful character. I see you have a quest item for me, and just I love expressing myself in many ways because I never got to do that when I was younger because similar upbringings, I was pretty shy with, with myself and performing with that stuff. And just, I love doing voices and just having you here talking about very similar experiences I had and very similar like ideas and creations. It's like, it's a whole new, like fresh breath of air I have of this stuff.
Yeah.
And like,
yeah,
it's
it's
inspiring, and you're very inspiring just from what you just said.
Oh, well, thanks. No, it's it sounds like, you're into it for the right reasons. And I know talking about like shyness and doing voices and stuff like that, that definitely helped me get out of my shell for sure. I mean, at the end of high school, the very tail end of high school, I started finding confidence just having like performed and knowing that, people enjoyed it. And I remember one of my good childhood friends growing up, I was like so shy and I could not like I was just very stereotypical, like very shy around girls. And like I remember, because she was a girl, but I like grew up with her, so I was like fine, I was comfortable with it. But like she had friends that were girls, and I remember just being shy talking and being bad at like eye contact and stuff. And but then it was like going into like college. There's like the summer before, some of her friends there, and I was like more confident, and it's like I was just talking like friendly, but like we're talking about different accents and stuff because Claire's like, oh yeah, Connor's really good at accents and impressions, and funny enough, I'm shyer about doing them now, like in public, but I was able to just talk about that and like entertain people that I wasn't like people, and this doesn't just mean like girls, but just I'm talking more just generally with just like people, but like I was able to just get a hook in and just talk to people because it was something I was confident about. And then my friend's like, just so you should like lean into that when you first go to college, because that could help. I'm like, I don't know, it's kind of silly, like, what people are gonna want to hear me do, like, I don't know, just like impressions from whatever. But like I kind of, when I went there, it was kind of an ice-breaking party trick. And I met my like first girlfriend because like I got signaled over because she knew someone who already heard me do voices, like, come over here, like do some impressions. And that's how I met like the first girlfriend I had. So yeah, it does, it can help people just, that's like improv. People do improv. Some people just do it just to kind of become more socially confident. So yeah, it's just great in that way too.
I see that Mr. Shadow wants to take over the next little question. So question number 4, I'm gonna let him read.
I just usurp control of this now.
Assuming direct control.
It's a very British thing to do. No. So, first thing, obviously, talk about and get into sort of the meat of things, obviously, now, is the Wesker role himself. First of all, did you do any prior research into the character once you landed the role? Is there anything that sort of really appealed to him, which is why you kind of went for it?
Well, I was aware of Wesker for a while. Probably for like a decade. I was aware of Wesker and his whole kind of vibe. For the record, I had never played a full Resident Evil game. So flay me now. But it's mainly because I was too scared. Spoiler alert. But I'm sure I could play them all now and it'd be fine. But yeah, so I was definitely aware of Wesker, and I didn't, I mean, obviously it's a character that's been, I'm like the 5th or 6th person to voice the character. But I also did not assume I would ever be voicing him. And I didn't really pursue it. It kind of pursued me in this case because I got asked to read for it. And so at first just kind of like, why me? Why now? So, you know, I had a cursory knowledge and I was like, can I do the voice? I don't think I'd tried. You know, sort of tangentially related. Like I'd imitate every Mass Effect character, and one of them is Legion, which obviously shares a, you know, voice with Wesker at, you know, at a point in time.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, similar vocal range. And I think I kind of just was like talking to people, and I was like stressed out about something, and, you know, to kind of voice my frustration, I slipped into this voice that accidentally kind of was the Wesker voice. And I was like, oh, okay, maybe I can do it. So I was going to make that little personal note for later. And then I did the audition and I got asked to do the part. So, yeah, I mean, I was aware of Wesker, you know, and I kind of know his general role in the story of Resident Evil. But there's certainly, you know, the people on Twitter, most of my Twitter followers, I think, could you know, get into Wesker's whole history better than me, I'm sure, as is the case a lot of times with voice actors. You know, I've had that where listening to well, even talking to like Keith Farley about like Mass Effect, because like I don't know if he's played it now, but at the time when I talked to him, he's like, oh yeah, I never got around to like picking that up. I'm like, are you serious? Come on, man. It's the best game ever. But there's like certain things like he'll like, oh yeah, and I think this, and I'm like, actually, no, you're on this planet, and I don't know all the planet names in Mass Effect. There's too many. I know most of the big ones, but
Earth.
Yes, Earth, the big
Good
one.
stuff.
The big one, the Citadel, Vermeer, Ilos, etc. But yeah, no. So I was aware of Wesker for sure, and I was just really concerned with kind of getting it right from what people knew it, but also knowing, you know, there's going to be a little bit of me in there too, as is the case of any role reprisal or kind of legacy character, I guess. So I just had to kind of accept that too and trust the direction and hopes that people would like it.
Mm. This is what I wanted to definitely ask, because obviously Resident Evil's been around for a long time. There's a lot of
almost as long as I've been alive, yeah.
Which is frightening. I try not to think about it personally.
I know, yeah.
But obviously that means there's characters that have been around, there's voice actors people associate, Purple Dad for Leon, for example. DC Douglas for Wesker is the most relevant example. Does that kind of affect how you kind of approach these roles? Because there's always this kind of expectation of people of what they associate the role with.
Yes, with a lot more fear. Yeah, well, no, I'm not here, you know, with portraying it, having my own swing at the character after having previously, DC Douglas in this case, and, you know, the case for anyone who's played any Resident Evil character, because they've all had multiple voice actors. I was not trying to reinvent the wheel, or like try to go, oh, now let me tell you how it's done. I really wanted to just pay respect to what came before, first and foremost, because I do not own the character. I'm not entitled to the character. And I really, you know, it's something that has a big fan base, and I just wanted to be as faithful as I could, and, you know, just have respect for what came before, because, you know, in my case, you know, DC Douglas and Peter Jessup, who, you know, note, since we're talking about Mass Effect, was Sovereign, who, you know, whose scene blew me away. Yeah, I've admired their work for a long time, and, you know, including, you know, you go into live action, like Lance Reddick is Wesker also. And it's kind of crazy to think I've shared a role technically with him. So yeah, it's just kind of, it's a humbling thing. It's a big honor. But I'm also just like, I'm not trying to anything like that. It's not any attempt to make waves, but just to kind of humbly carry the torch for, you know, however long that is, whether it's an iteration or, you know, something down the road. And just kind of keep on sailing with it.
That's fair enough.
Yeah.
Reaction then, I suppose, is a good shout. There's been obviously, I assume there's been tons of positivity and support you've got from the community. I can only assume, from Resident Evil fans themselves. I mean, I assume there's been a lot of positive reaction to you.
Yeah, thankfully. I was quite nervous about that. Thankfully, I kind of got a decent ease in because, when I'm involved with a game, I tend to put little Google alerts in just so I can because you don't always know when it comes out. People assume you know everything. Not, I'm saying people in a very general sense, but a lot of people will assume you know way more about a project than you actually do. And why did this happen in the game? I don't know. I wasn't involved at all. So I had some you get Google alerts, and so in this case the lines for Wesker were leaked, and they were up on YouTube, so I was aware of it, and stupidly in a general sense, but not necessarily in this case, I glanced at some of the comments in a moment of weakness, and I was pleasantly surprised that people liked it. So I was like, okay, good. And then I'm not going to read too many more of these because, you're always going to keep overturning rocks until you find the nasty stuff. But thankfully, generally everything was quite, really nice. And then when I announced, it's a slow roll in of who sees it, say on a Twitter post. I'm 10 minutes in, I'm well, no one reacted. So probably it's going to go under the radar and no one's going to, make note, and that's fine. But which is kind of a dumb thought that you're in 10 minutes you're gonna get 2,000 more followers. Doesn't quite work like that exactly. But when I announced, I had some friends who were like, dude, you know how big DBD is, this is gonna be a lot of people are gonna be aware of who you are. And I'm well, not really, it's kind of a slow roll in so far. And then in a couple hours I was like, oh, you're right. And they're like, yeah, I know. So, and I should have known because Wesker's a big, yeah, I know. So it's it's a big character, but you're I'm not gonna, I don't know. I'm just kind of, whenever something happens to me, I'm always oh, well, I did it. It's an imposter syndrome thing. I'm well, I did it. So, it's not, anyone could do it. So yeah, that was and everyone's been super nice. It's not universal acclaim. I've whether they sought me out or didn't, people have their little critiques here and there, and that's fine. One guy who had no Twitter followers. Here I am going, well, he had no Twitter followers, so his point is invalid. But it's there's someone who sought me out to, kind of, I don't know if we can swear on here.
Oh yes, you can. You can.
Just a shit talk, and then I clicked on his profile, and he literally would just reply to other people and just say mean things. I'm all right, that's your mission statement. Just that's your mission statement. So I was just well, sorry, sorry. But yeah, and of course I know with any character, not everyone is going to universally like it. Especially if it's a huge thing, and you just have to accept that and hope that you can take pride in it on your own. And thankfully, most people have been extremely nice, more so than I even felt like I deserved. But I'll talk to my therapist about that part.
I'm sure the meeting's scheduled for next week.
Yeah. That's that's on the notes.
All right, so we have to get into question number 6. If you were hypothetically asked to reprise Wesker yet again, would you do it?
Never. Not in a million years.
That sounds like a yes.
Okay, next question.
No, of course. Obviously, as being said, I'm Wesker number 5 in terms of voice and Wesker number 10 in terms of portrayal. I do not feel entitled to it, in the sense that, if you're not the first, you could also very well not be the last. So yes, of course, it's been great fun, to voice Wesker. So yeah, I would absolutely do it if that was something Capcom, wanted to explore again, and fans wanted it. I'd absolutely be down. But yeah, it's just cool to have been him, here. So yeah, I of course I would it would be an honor, but I'm not owed it. And I'm a fan of the other portrayals too, so
Yeah,
either way's okay. And there's always stuff going. It's funny because now most people who like follow me probably they tie me to that character now, which I've spent more time looking at Pearl Jam bass tabs on the internet than I have voicing Wesker. So yes or no, it's all good. But yeah, of course, I'd love to get another swing at that again.
It's a big like recency thing, and I think it comes with the territory of people seeing how they resonate with that character and those renditions going forward. Obviously, it was a lot of setup. Like Wesker had so many different voice actors, GameCube, different voice, very interesting. And then we go into the later consoles where he's voiced by different people. So they all had their sort of unique spins on that person, and I think seeing that is grand because I'm a huge fan of the character, and seeing him progress into either the past or present, that would be interesting to see in my opinion.
Yeah, totally. I don't know if any of you've gone on the website like behindthevoiceactors.com. Behind the voice actors. Just in case they want to use that little audio tag, I just left that for them. Wink, wink. No, but like when you go on that, and there's so many characters that have been voiced by so many people, and I loved like listening to the voice compares because you can hear how they're similar and how they're different. Like, I don't know, Megatron was one of my favorite just fictional characters growing up, and he's been voiced a jillion times. And then like even Frank Welker's voiced him multiple times, and it sounded different either through aging or just how he wanted to portray the character. And I love hearing different versions of characters. Yeah, so it's cool to have a character that you feel is all your own, which it never really is the case, because you don't own that character unless you created it. But it's also cool to be like one of many. And I've always wanted to do that in my career, and I didn't expect that so soon. So yeah.
We have a follow-up question here, and it's about Dead by Daylight. We noticed that, well, personally, I noticed that you started just now playing that game, and you made videos on it saying how this is hard and it's really tough to get into this. And I'm just wondering how that experience has been, because I just started it recently, and I'm telling you now is very hard because the killer keeps catching me, and I don't know what to do, and it's one of those situations.
I've made a couple TikToks tied to it, and I made some TikToks after, and someone said, do more Wesker content. I'm like, all right, that's why you're here. Okay. Yeah. C'est la vie. Yes, I have started playing it. I have not played it as much as I would have liked. I've been pretty busy this past month, really, but yeah, in the video, I had that one where I'm very panicked and I'm asking all these questions. People so very sweetly explained like things very much in depth, and I kind of felt bad because there's a lot of that I actually like. I know how to kind of work the blood web. People ask me, what build do you use? I'm like, I don't know that. I don't know what that means. I just fill them all out until I get to the next level. I'm probably screwing myself over in some way. Yeah, no, I've played Killer more often. One, I guess I voice a killer, so it's an ego trip. But I actually have played as other killers too. I don't just go with Wesker. I played as Wesker more than any others. Let's not lie.
You know where your bread's buttered.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm a Wesker main there right now.
Yeah, hey, join the fray. But I've played Survivor too, and I'm just hot garbage at the game, let me tell you. I've been humiliated. I had a great game as the hillbilly, and I was like kicking ass. And then I was like, man, maybe this is who I should main as, just as a fun, ironic thing. And then, like, I think I even tweeted it out. I'm like, I don't know, I'm pretty good with the hillbilly. And then the next round, I just got humiliated. Did not catch a single person once. So yeah, it's been fun. I would like to play it more. I haven't really haven't been able to play it too much, but yeah, it's been fun. And the lore is super interesting because all the killers had their little stories, and obviously a lot of them are franchise tie-ins, like Wesker. But stuff like the Huntress is interesting, or they all have their own little backstories, and people are like, oh, and then this is implied to be a survivor also, and it's like Five Nights at Freddy's, where it's like you're like, well, this is just like a there's not much like dialogue in it, and there was only dialogue only recently, but like there's all this like lore that's kind of hidden and interesting. Also, the Huntress's little hum that she does, man, that just creeps me out. It just makes me so paranoid whenever I hear that, because I'm like, oh god, I'm gonna get axed here in just 10 seconds probably, or it just makes you paranoid.
Yeah, her lullaby.
Yeah, I just wish Wesker had a gun so I could finish people off. People like, where's my gun?
Where's my Desert
October
Eagle?
31st, Wesker gets a gun day.
Yeah, oh, you're just willing that into
Desert Eagle.
existence. Oh man.
Give him his samurai edge.
Bring out the lightning
range.
hawk. Just
Yeah.
that was
You've
hilarious.
enjoyed the experience overall, though.
I mean,
Yes, oh yeah, for sure. Even if it's just a lot of me dying. I like going against Michael Myers for whatever reason, because it just feels like
my favorite.
like, oh my god, it's him, and the music plays while you're being chased, and I'm like, oh, well, it's like I'm in Halloween.
Yeah.
So that's fun.
Michael's fun when you know how to play him.
Yeah,
It's a little bit of a tricky character.
I just have like the basics, and I was able to get Wesker having done it. So sadly I've not had the pleasure of playing as him, but I'm sure it's pretty fun. There's a ton of killers.
It's developed so much over the course of years.
I don't know how the dickens the survivors' abilities work most of the time, to be honest. I like playing as the ones that you can usually see where the killer is, so I don't have to be as scared, because I'm a coward.
What killer is that?
No, Survivor.
Survivor.
Oh.
Yeah.
I think a few of them have an ability. You guys would know better.
Or reading stuff.
Yeah.
So you said Wesker doesn't have his gun in that game? I know a game that he does use his gun. It's called Marvel vs. Capcom 3.
Yep, that was true.
Well, there we go.
Yeah, he was good in that game.
Yeah, he was. And, you could see him shoot Ryu and do insane combos, like his Infinite.
Those fighting games are great, but it's just like every time I play it, I have to like pause and go, okay. So triangle, square, up, down, and they're like, wait, and then you're playing with someone like, wait, let me just try to use this move on you, and they're like, no, it's like a finishing move. I'm not just gonna let you do it. I guess that's
the
why
only
they have,
game
like,
I got
training modes.
Yeah.
I got into Tekken 7 and I got pretty decent at that. I was like, I gotta get good at one fighting game. This is the game that's gonna be it.
I had Soul Calibur 2.
Oh yeah.
Oh, wow. That's a good one.
Soul Calibur 2.
The best one, in my opinion.
I was
Classic.
well, I started with like Nightmare.
Yes.
Because I just would like spam the triangle button or whatever, and
Oh,
swing
his heavy
that
was so broken.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think, and then I moved on to Sophidia, and I think I kind of settled with Sophidia. But yeah, that was fun. We'd always do it. Like my brother and I would pick we do 8 versus 8, so it'd just be this really prolonged fight with like everyone in it. That was some good fun for sure.
You conceited wretched human.
Yeah,
Love
was it
those
like
quotes.
Cervantes was pretty wild.
Cervantes.
Valdo was so weird. Just doing his little weird swivel walk, even when stationary.
He was a JoJo character.
And humping the ground.
Yeah, he was, wasn't he?
Yep.
He's a total JoJo.
Yoshimitsu, when I first played it, Namu, when you first unlock him, I'm like, wait a minute, he's a Tekken character. What's he doing in this game? And then, yeah. But I think in this game, it's like his ancestor or something like that, which makes sense.
No, it's all in the same canon.
Yeah, it was cool
Weirdly
though.
enough.
I didn't expect Yoshi, regardless, to be in that game. That was a cool unlock character.
Yeah, those fighting games, they're good fun, and then also, you know, it's just like violence, and then just like very scantily clad women, because they're like, that's practical in a fight, but it's not really a marketing. That's not what the marketing plan is exactly.
Hey, early Dungeons and Dragons, that was their marketing.
So I have a side
yeah.
question. I have a quick side question from Mr. Brandel. He said, do you have any Wesker actors that you've heard of before that you prefer in terms of voice, and how do you feel about them in general?
Well, I mean, I mentioned DC Douglas and Peter Jessup, and I'd been fans of both of their work for, you know, a while for sure. You know, I played Persona 5 and Kamoshida's in that, and Legion, of course, and Mass Effect, and yeah, Peter Jessup, I've heard a number of things, and including Mass Effect again. It always comes back to Mass Effect for me, I guess. Yeah, I mean, those are the two. I knew the DC Douglas Wesker voice is like the first voice I was aware of. So that's the one that I kind of was aware of first. I was very flattered online when people said it sounded like, oh, you sound like the 5 Wesker mixed with like the original. I was just flattered that people thought I was like that specific and deliberate with it. I'm like, cool. I don't, you know, it's just maybe just where our natural voices sit. And that could be true. People would know that better than I would. But yeah, that was just kind of, I guess, just how our voices sound naturally, and it probably just translated that way. I don't know. Yeah. But yeah, no, I mean, I've been a fan of the voice work of both of them for sure. Kind of studying the art of voiceover myself for however long. Yeah, I've been aware of them for quite a while. So yeah, I don't know. Talented folk.
Yeah, like, just to like reiterate on that point, it's just like the amount of responses I said, like, that when they first people saw the trailer, the original trailer for Project W, and hearing your voice as Wesker for the first time, it's just so many people were like, it was sort of a split divide, but more people were like, did they copy the voice lines from Resident Evil 5? And then some people were like, I'm not sure, it sounds like it. And I have to say, personally, I have to say that's a great accomplishment if you can not really trick people, but get them so confused of how good it was. Like, yeah, I am serious. It was that good that people couldn't tell if it was they're reusing voice lines from a previous game or it was the actual voice. And that, I have to say, is awesome.
I suppose so. When you're kind of stepping into something, I just don't want it to be like distracting. Yeah, so no, yeah, I guess I am flattered by that. You know, and with respect to like previous lines, I think with something like Dead by Daylight, where they're taking from previous franchises, I think there's a lot of time of wanting to use, because obviously it's like Dead by Daylight is its own, if it has any continuity or canon, someone could answer that better than me, but like when you have those guest killers, you know them from their previous franchises, so there's a lot of wanting to kind of honor classic lines. At least I think this is all new, because I know killers normally aren't voiced. But I think in this case, it's like, well, you know, what's some fun lines? It's like the 7 minutes line. I didn't know how kind of popular that line was, or like I'd see the comments like, yes, he said this line, and I'm like, great, I'm glad you're happy that that line is in, you know. I was just trying to do it the best I could, but yeah, so it is definitely like paying kind of tribute to past games for sure.
Yeah, and just like, you know, when you do the Mori and you're like, time to die, Chris.
Hi, Chris. Yeah.
Yeah, just it's awesome. It's just how I just love that they're able to just, you know, keep part of the what made Wesker, but also gave you some originality to it, and I love it.
Yeah, well,
I love it.
Some of that just is gonna just come from, you know, I have a different voice box than, say, DC Douglas or Jessup or Richard. I don't know how to say his last name. I'm sorry, Richard. Richard. What's that?
He's Richard War, I think it is.
Yes.
Yes, like, you know, so there's going to be those little moments, but yeah, especially when shouting, you're going to hear that just kind of, you know, the DNA, the shifts in the DNA. But I do love that about Wesker in particular, you know, in previous iterations too, because, you know, normally it's just down in here and it's all very controlled, but then it gets unhinged real, you know, it gets, you know, and then it gets up there and, you know, intense, and any of those kind of, and I feel like I've played increasingly a lot of them, the characters that are in control on the surface, but are kind of just, you know, wackadoodles deep down.
Yeah.
And when they lose control, they just get real sloppy real quick. And that's always kind of fun. I think that's just my Catholic repression, just training my acting.
That's funny because I'm Catholic too.
Yeah, I was an altar boy back in the day, so, you know, you learn that sort of kind of orderliness and decorum.
Yeah.
When you're really just a human and like anyone else, and, you know, just self-pressure on yourself, really.
Yeah, honestly, those are some of the best characters to voice. Sometimes is like they seem really cool and super self-contained, but the moment something doesn't work, they just completely like
they
elevate they become a mess. And I love voicing character, like doing voices for certain characters like that when I do my Dungeons and Dragons stuff, where like I'm just some villain that's like loses everything, and they just get this whole new perspective and whole new like attitude from this character that I have made, and like it's so fun to play a character that has many layers that you can unravel at any time.
Yeah, well, it's like that TV tropes. You know, that, I don't know if you guys know that website.
Yeah,
I am familiar. Yes.
That's a big time sink. You'll spend an hour reading about, you know, but like there's the page for villainous breakdown, and it's the whole thing. It's those cool, calm, and collected characters, and then they become children after a few setbacks, which can be scarier sometimes, but sometimes it's funny too.
Yes, the cycle of regression, almost the big cycle of regression.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, no, so those characters are fun to play, and I felt lucky to have had a few swings at that, and hopefully more down the road.
Yeah.
Mr. Kaneki, I want you to read question number 8.
Certainly. Have you ever done full body mocap before? If not, would you be privy towards the idea?
Well, nothing that's out I've done has been mocap, but yeah, I mean, you know, I would love to do that more and more for sure. I do have an on-camera background, and I do miss, I mean, I can always still pursue it. I haven't done as much on camera as of late, but yeah, anytime to use the full body is really fun, especially in mocap, because you're still not quite limited. You might be limited by height depending on the game. That's not always the case, but so there could be some physicality factors there too. But still, you can use your full body to be as imaginative as you want, and I think in theater, I remember getting a note from my director and kind of like our theater mentor and professor. In one play I was doing this big monologue. I played Poseidon in this play, The Women of Troy, and I basically open the play and then I'd leave the play for the rest of the play. But I get this big monologue, and the note was she told me my movements were quote unquote too angular. And I think that just is a testament to just my natural clumsy nature and kind of jerky motions. I feel like half the people I know have like imitated my walk back at me for whatever reason. I think I have a kind of an intense walk, I guess. I kind of walk fast, and I have long gorilla arms. I'm like 5'9", but my wingspan's like 6 feet. So I have pretty long arms, and they just kind of naturally swing when I walk, and I walk fast, and I kind of walk with my shoulders like and head pointed forward. So I'm like, oh, that would be really fun to like incorporate into a villain. And I kind of really would love to incorporate my natural lack of grace into a character. That's kind of a big goal of mine, I think.
All right, we're gonna move on to question number 7. Silver, could you read that off, please?
Yes.
number 9?
I mean number 9. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem. Alrighty. Let me just pull up the list. One moment, folks. Do you have any other voice actors that you appreciate in the industry? Any personal favorites to perhaps list off?
No, I hate them all, as you'd imagine.
Wesker's taking over.
I want to see them destroyed. No, of course. If I had to say like my big 3 kind of coming up, that maybe even as a kid kind of inspired me, it would be, and don't make it mean to make it a boys club, but I'm a man myself, so these were inspirations. But Corey Burton was one, because he was also a shy kid who became transfixed by voices on TV, and radio and whatnot, and just his kind of like just intense focus on the character craft, and he's done voice matches and stuff, and he's been around since the 80s, and he was like the original Shockwave in Transformers. He was one. David Kaye was a huge one for me. He's Clank and Ratchet and Clank and Beast Wars Megatron, and like he did like Megatron and like the Transformer animes that were out. And just like I was like, those are the same guy. Because that was like my favorite video game as a kid, and then like my favorite TV show, and just that range. He was super cool. And then D. Bradley Baker would have to be another one. Just kind of like, my voice is very different from his, but it's just kind of, well, one, his creature sounds are just nuts. It's just, if anyone hasn't looked that up, I would implore you to check out just the sounds that can come out of that smiling, bright-eyed man. Haven't had the pleasure of meeting him, but he's been a hero of mine, and like I have the same agents as he does, which blows my mind now. Just the kind of approach I know he took to his career, where he just kind of said yes to everything and tried to find things that made him happy, no matter what it was, voiceover or not. So he was kind of a North Star. And then there's a lot of people I've been aware of moving down here. When I first moved down, I kind of naively thought that voiceover was this little secret I discovered. I didn't know anyone really in my personal life that was pursuing it. I knew that they were out there, but like I didn't know it, so I felt like it was a rare thing, and that I was kind of following along and trying to. So naive. But like, I kind of, and then I come down and learn there's a lot of really talented people that are making their way up, which is very eye-opening and humbling, because they're like, all right, there's a lot of competition of really talented people. But I've met some great people along the way. I mean, one person I really admire, who's one of my best friends, who I've known before any of us knew who, or anyone knew who either of us was, Valeria Rodriguez, is a super talent. Sucrose and Genshin probably is one of their biggest roles, and they're going to be in the new Monster High.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'll shout out Valeria there. But yeah, I mean, like Keith Farley I mentioned was just a great mentor, and yeah, no, I mean, there's so many people, and I've just been honored to get to know a lot of these people personally, and it's just hope that I belong in the club. Imposter syndrome is real, but yeah, it's been great to know people, or be like a degree of separation away if I don't know them personally. It's kind of wild how small everything is, even if it was bigger than I thought, but still, it's a small world.
Yeah. You also mentioned Beast Wars, and I have a massive smile on my face right now. Childhood.
Transformers, yeah.
I had to watch that retrospectively. I think that, do you know what year that came out?
It had to be 90s, I believe.
It was 90s 100%. It was like early 90s. I was born in
97.
97. It was 97.
Yeah, 97.
97. Okay, so I was like
me and Silver got it.
Yeah.
I was born in '94,
Oh,
so
and I can
like
do it real quick.
I had to watch like I think I like found Beast Wars online in like middle school, so I don't think I saw like every episode, but I think that's probably, if I remembered correctly, maybe story wise the best of the Transformers franchise.
Oh yes.
Really good stuff. The Dinobot arc, it's killer.
Yeah, it was 96 September 16th. Was the
Yeah.
first episode airing.
Oh wow, yeah. Well, you know, computer animation has evolved since then, but you know, it still looks pretty cool, you know, in its kind of retro way.
I actually watched a little video, not really little, it was pretty long, but it was a video talking about the intros to every Transformers there was, from the original to the latest.
Cool.
And the guy was explained how this which each iteration of the Transformers theme and intro was like, because this guy was like a huge Transformers fan, and then he would give his impression on each one. And if I remember correctly, he was like, Beast Wars was a special part of my childhood. Looking back at it now,
Yeah.
yeah, and just how they implement. It's funny because nearly every Transformers animated show incorporates the original theme either in a remix, a remastered version, or some of them actually just reuse it and just add to it.
Yeah, they had a little dubstep drop, you know.
And it's just like you can't beat the original Transformers. It's iconic, catchy, and it's filled with so much iconic roles. Iconic.
G1 had like a few intros too. Well, they had the
had
84 one, which was very Hanna-Barbera, and then 85 was felt a little more mature, quote unquote, and then 87 was like kind of the weird, spooky sounding one, which was like the post Optimus Prime being dead sort of thing.
Yeah.
But that one was
Rodimus
very
Prime.
Halloween. Yeah. That one always sounded very Halloween-y to me. I went back. We had someone gave me the VHS tape, so I watched those in middle school too. So I was I haven't kept up as much nowadays, but you know, it's always curious to see how the franchise gets rebooted, and you know, obviously there's those movies that came out. But yeah.
I grew up with the original Transformers movie. That was part of my childhood because that was my dad's childhood.
Oh, that's cool.
I can always just remember. I just always remember. You got the touch.
Oh,
you got the power.
That's iconic.
That was my childhood.
You know. Speaking of that song, have you ever heard? There's like this YouTube series. This is like just over 10 years old now. It's called Inappropriate Soundtracks. Anyone heard of that?
Yes, I have. Yeah.
They did an amazing one with Stan Bush's The Touch, but it was over the original Star Wars, the Death Star run. And it's like Obi-Wan going like, use the Force, Luke. And then it starts playing it, and like as he's flying along and blows up the Death Star, and it's so good. And you get like chills. Like it works so well. And then, because, you know, I mean, that movie came out in 77, so that song's, well, it's all fake, but still, I'm like, this would have worked. I mean, you're not going to hear some non-orchestral music in a Star Wars main saga film, but like, I'm like, that would have worked. If that was like set the precedent, I'm like, I wouldn't have been mad. Or you got to fight for the right to party over the Ewok celebration. That's pretty good too.
That's bringing me some Return of the Living Dead vibes right there.
Yeah.
So we have the final question that we need to answer, and that is, are there any tips that you would give people who want to be voice actors, people who are inexperienced as beginners?
Oh boy. All right. Well, this is the classic voice actor question to get. The first thing I would say that I now tell everyone, it's also my lazy answer, but I'll go more in depth too. The lazy answer is go to iwanttobeavoiceactor.com, D. Bradley Baker's website, if you have not already. that was a pivotal moment for me. D. Bradley Baker made the website because he's been asked that way more than I have, way more, astronomically more. But he's like, instead of monologuing at you for 2 hours, I thought I'd write it up. And he still updates it to this day because like the industry is changing. But it's literally, it takes, I think, a couple hours at least to read, maybe more now. But I would say if you are brand new and you're like, man, I think I want to try voiceover, but you like don't know anywhere to start, I would say first and foremost check that out because he pretty much covers almost everything. And an important thing that I think I should touch on, because voice actors get asked this so much, is like know why you want to do it, because it's a long haul. I'm 28 now, and you know, when I was going into college was kind of my first time trying to really work towards it. And, you know, I was still just going to school and stuff, but I was trying to get into plays or do college radio to practice talking in front of people and trying just dumb characters on the air to my 2 listeners and try to do student films. It's a lot of work and it's a huge time investment, you know, 10 years. And like, still, I don't make all of my living in voiceover. So like you know, I get closer and, you know, I've worked more this year than I ever have in it, but it's a marathon. And I think it's important for people to get into the right reasons, because it's thousands of dollars of, you know, classes, equipment. I remember I met someone a long time ago that I was working with, and I was like, yeah, I'm trying to get into voiceover. And she's like, oh, yeah, I think I'd be good at that. I'm like, cool. Like, you know, like there's always like stuff to try. And she's like, and then like she came back later. She's like, oh, I went to this like $150 class and it was bullshit. And I'm like, well, first of all, $150, that sounds cheap for a class. Second of all, well, it's like, well, why was it bullshit? And she's like, well, they say you have to like make this demo and it's going to cost, you know, $1,000 or more. And you have to do these, you know, this and that. And you need to know these people. I'm like, well, that's kind of all true. And she's like, well, I'm going to find it my own way. I'm like, okay, you know, good luck. Cause actors get, you know, so many people probably go to an SNL person and go, oh yeah, you know, I'm a pretty funny guy, you know, I think I could be on SNL. It's like, yeah, but there's that long journey to get there. So I'd say make sure you know that you do it because you're a fan of performing. It's something you have to do versus, I guess in the case of voiceover, and I think why voiceover, there's a lot of people that maybe aspire to it even offhandedly, is because maybe they're a fan of, a lot of people are a fan of video games or anime, and it's something they want to be a part of, which I totally get. I was there too, but I also tested to make sure I loved acting. So that's like why I was like, well, I need to do plays to like figure out if I can act first, because I'd have people go, you should be a voice actor. I'm like, I don't know if I can do the voice, but can I like create a character? So, you know, what AK Austin was touching on, like creating characters in D&D, that's great practice. And I would say try to get involved with any productions. You don't have to be in a major hub. And in fact, I would maybe advise against getting started in a major hub because it is so competitive. Like if you don't live in LA or New York, that's great. There's a smaller market. You can really cut your teeth getting involved with either it's community theater or you know, do on camera stuff. Because if you don't, I get if maybe you find on camera, say maybe tedious or theater's so much a time sink, but like if you're not enjoying the acting part, you know, that's important to know because voiceover is going to be a lot of acting. I've used a voice closer to my own voice in voiceover than I have maybe not. So, you know, but I still love acting and the theater of the mind. And that's kind of the most important thing. And yeah, just get your practice in and don't worry about making a demo right away or buying all the best equipment. You don't have to. Just have fun with it first. And then as you get better and better, that stuff and those steps will come to you. And D. Bradley Baker's website is a great place too. No, when those
Big
steps
plug alert.
happen. Yeah, big plug alert. D. Bradley Baker needs a plug from me, a guy he's probably never heard of. I'm sure.
Sponsored by I Want to Be a Voice Actor.
Yeah.
And behind the voice actors.
Hey.
Yeah.
It also,
I have.
I was just
Sorry,
gonna say,
go ahead,
also-
Silver.
Sorry. It also sounds like, from what you were just explaining as well, that much like anything, you need to have a series or at least some realistic expectations. Say, just like when people go into theatre or any kind of, career path or something they might want to take more seriously, have realistic expectations of what it might well take.
Yes. No, absolutely. I knew going in, oh yeah, it'll be hard. But you don't know what it's like to live the rejections. You could know intellectually, but to experience it and go through ebbs and flows. Like when I first got started, I had some really good early successes and then a lot of slow periods. That's been a consistent trend on camera, voiceover, whatever. So it's so easy to go at the beginning, yeah, man, I'm a natural. It's going to take no time. And then when things inevitably get slow, you're like, I'm terrible. It's over. And it just, there's probably people that maybe are more emotionally stable than I am. And they're like, no, I get it. But like, you do some things have gone faster to me than I expected. Like there's certain things I didn't expect to get to do so soon in my career. And then there's other things that like I thought would have already happened by now. It's so hard to predict. But if you can't not do it, that's when you got to do it. That was a very dumb way to say it, but it's the truth.
Pretty solid.
Okay.
And when you mentioned ebbs and flows as well, I in the back of my brain, I'm like, is this gentleman describing YouTube to me here? Am I having flashbacks of my own?
Oh, I'm sure it's all the same. And it's funny because YouTube, growing up and listening to like Rob Paulson's podcast about how like, so many people that he talked to who are like the classic voice actors that we all know and love. They're like, I didn't know that could be a career. And I'm like, of course it could have been a career, but it's because I was born in the 90s. That was, I saw Toy Story when I was a kid and I learned what those names of the credits were. But like YouTube, I didn't know that could be a career because, I remember in 2005 when it was just like that muffins video where the guy makes up all those crazy muffins and you're like, this is YouTube. It's just people in Nebraska making weird videos and I love it. Or Iowa or, South Carolina or, Oregon, just random places. Now it's an industry and people go to hubs and people move to LA to be a YouTuber. And you're like, what the hell? Or a TikToker, That is the kind of crazy thing about the society. Everything's kind of becoming more and more of a business, which I get. It depresses me a little bit, but I mean, here I am doing that in my own way. But it's a long haul. But if it's what you want to do, I'm also a musician, and I kind of do that a little more for fun. But like, you got to know. If you want it to be your thing, there's a commitment and a priority you have to make. Would I be living in LA if, I wasn't pursuing voiceover? I like LA, but probably not. I did move here for this, and I emotionally prepared myself for like 7 years that I was probably going to have to move to LA. Not that it's that bad. I'm like, I got to really psych myself up. But like, I'm a Northwest boy, and I probably would just be in the Northwest if it wasn't for this. So yeah, I mean, it's a commitment. There's sacrifices, and what kind of music do I do? Kind of alt rock, Queens the Stone Age meets Interpol meets Soundgarden, I guess. Sorry, I just saw that chat question there. Very nice, thank you. Yeah, so Soundgarden is R.I.P. Chris Cornell. That was sorry, I'm getting off task here, but it's serious business. Austin, were you about to say something earlier?
I was just gonna say is like just going back on a previous question about like inspiration. because I'm a huge Dungeons and Dragons nerd, and I just love a lot of things Dungeons and Dragons. A huge inspiration in the voice acting community and Dungeons and Dragons is Matthew Mercer.
Who's that? Who's that?
He's been a big influence on how I just like to do voices every now and again, even if it's just to myself or just to friends. And growing up,
I was gonna say apparently I was laughing just because like half the time now when I do something, people go, "I thought that was Matthew Mercer." I'm like, "No, it's just me." Continue.
Yeah, and just growing up and in high school and such, because I'm only 21, like I'm still very young. And
you've got some experience under your belt.
And I have a friend of mine who wants to be a voice actor himself, and he was a very good friend of mine until after high school, where things of like the whole lockdown situation and stuff, and we got distant. So me and him would always like go off each other with voices. We would do voices from anime, from video games, from all sorts of stuff, and he did a really good Joker from the animated series impression. Like he did a very good Joker impression. And then I did stuff like, funny enough, like Wesker. I did a lot of Resident Evil characters. I did a lot more video game stuff, and he did a lot more cartoons and animation stuff. But we'd always go off each other, and it's just funny because the experiences you had growing up and stuff is very similar to like what I had, like I said before. But like I would say like my big influencers would probably be Matthew Mercer, many other voices in like Star Wars stuff and animated stuff and anime. Like it's just a one big like conglomerate of like you said, a hub of those voice actors of just doing just a bit of everything essentially. And I take that experience and that influence into my like sessions in Dungeons and Dragons when I play with my friends, or I'm a DM myself, and it's just such a huge wheel, and I just can't help but get super excited about this stuff.
Oh, totally. Your influences. That's the kind of people say like an artist, a great artist copies, or I don't know. That's not the quote.
Life imitates art. Artist imitates life.
Well, yeah, that. But like the idea that like your influences, how much are you ripping off your influences or whatever like that? Because like say, as an actor, or there's people you like and you're gonna take sonic things from them, or it's even easier as a musician. Like I'd look up how to play certain songs, and then now this guitar riff I'm playing sounds like I'm doing an impression of Dave Grohl's guitar in a Foo Fighters song, and it's not officially, but it's like just naturally. With any sort of influence you have, you're gonna naturally just develop your own style with what sticks from what you know. And like, yeah, Matthew Mercer could be one. Funny enough, he's almost a little not after my time, because obviously he's but like growing up, he didn't really burst into the field or have his big break until, I was probably like in college at that point. And I was probably watching, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia more than I was playing video games, or I still wanted to be a voice actor more than anything. But like a lot of stuff I was consuming was not necessarily video games. So I was like, oh, this Matthew Mercer guy is a big deal. But yeah, I mean, funny enough, I think I've been ripping him off unconsciously, and I guess Ray Chase, if I'm going off what other commenters would assume I am too. Both are, amazing, and I've retrospectively become huge fans of both of them. But yeah, I mean, there's always times I'll be doing something, I'm like, I'm just trying to be Steve Bloom here, aren't I? And who wouldn't want to be Steve Bloom?
All right. Wesker versus
Noctis.
Spike.
Yeah. Oh, that could work too.
I could see Steve Bloom doing a good Wesker too. I bet he could.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That could work
Spike
too.
Spiegel.
He does a good Wolverine. I'll tell you that.
Agreed.
He's my favorite Wolverine.
It's him and like Scott McNeil are kind of the big, probably mostly Steve Bloom, but I know Scott McNeil. That was back in the 90s and turn of the century when like Beast Wars, those are Vancouver voice actors. David Kay is now in LA, but yeah, so like you get stuff like, well, that's like Dragon Ball. How many people have voiced all the Dragon Ball characters? Because there's like Texas, there's LA, and Vancouver. And then there's probably even more than 3 voice actors for how many people have played Vegeta? You know, I don't know.
I just know the main one, Chris Sabat.
Chris Sabat. Yeah, Chris Sabat, and then like in Vancouver is Brian Drummond, who was Ryuk in Death Note.
Ooh.
Oh yeah.
Example.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That was the anime. That was like the first non-Transformer. That's like, because I didn't watch anime growing up really besides those Transformer cartoons. So when my friend was like, dude, you gotta start watching anime, and he's like, start with Death Note, and Death Note's probably gotta still be one of my favorites.
Yeah, Death Note is an experience, that's for sure.
Death Note is, yeah, it's freaking awesome.
Take a potato chip and eat it.
I figured that would come up.
Thank you, Adult Swim, for introducing us to Death Note.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny, the potato chip thing, because like, you know, I watched it years after it came out, so then I saw that scene. I was like, that was a little dramatic. And then of course later I'm like, oh, of course that was the meme of the show.
Yeah.
But we actually are going to do outros, but before we do, we have a request that we must ask you, Mr. Connor, before we close out. It's for the intro of the podcast, where we basically have a line in the character's voice, and the voice that we want you to use is Wesker, and I want you to read.
I'm shocked, I tell you.
Shocked, he says. Okay. And this is the line I want you to say.
Oh,
gotta pay the bills, Kappa.
Greetings and salutations to the pathetic human race. My name is Albert Wesker, and welcome to the Infinite Ammo Syndicate podcast. 7 minutes. 7 minutes is all we can spare to play with you.
That was fantastic. Great job.
Yes.
Oh man.
Cold read.
I had to contain the squee. I am not going to lie. I had to contain the squee.
My cheeks hurt for how much smiling I've done this entire time.
I have to ask another question for Mr. Wesker.
Yes.
Why Rebecca instead of, a Claire? Like, why you want her as your lapdog in that RE03?
That is something you'll have to ask a big Resident Evil fan, because I have no idea.
Correct answer.
Yeah.
Correct answer, indeed.
Because Rebecca has a better taste in music, and because
that is interesting.
Claire and Wesker like tried hanging out one-on-one, and it just didn't have. It was fine, but just didn't have the right vibe.
Right.
I don't know.
Go to Code Veronica X for that.
Well, that vibe involves fisticuffs, but we'll just skip past that.
No, but don't worry, Wesker got with Jill in 5.
Oh yeah.
Brainwashed.
Oh damn.
You could be my bodyguard. I can be your long lost pal. I'll call you Jilly, and Jilly, you can call me Al.
Oh my god.
Okay.
We're just creating fan fiction now at this point.
We're just devolving right now. All right, well, this has been fantastic, I'm not gonna lie.
It's
Thank you
fun
very
talking to you
much.
guys.
It is time to do some outros. So Connor, can you plug where you are on social media and any projects you want to sort of give a shout out to?
You can find me. You can find me at so creative. Every voice actor styles their name this way, it seems. At this point, it's like I feel like I'm not verified, but it's too late to change. You can find me at Connor Fogarty, VOCONNORFOGARTYVO on Twitter, on Instagram, on TikTok. On Pinterest? No, I'm kidding. I don't have a Pinterest. I have like a Facebook
page. It's just Connor Fogarty, like a public one. Maybe don't go to my private one. But the public one, I don't update it a ton, but it's there. You know, it's there to keep you company. Yeah, and projects, because it needs my promotion. Play God of War Ragnarok, which is out November. Someone bail me out here. Does anyone know when it comes?
I think November 8th? 8th or the 9th? It's one of those.
Oh no, let me check.
Let's get it right here. November 9th. It's out November 9th. Cut that so it sounds.
Oh yeah. You know what other game is coming out on that day? Sonic.
Oh, well, you know, Sonic and God of War are really similar games, so they're competition.
They're both
Sonic
action
versus
adventures.
Kratos. So
Sonic's like done with Mario. He should do it with Kratos. Like,
Yeah.
I'll pay to play that.
Yeah.
Hey, watch Flash Gets. They did that. They already did that crossover in Flash Gets.
Let's see. Well, I feel like the big SMT fans have probably played the 3 remake or remaster, HD remaster. I've got stuff that's coming out. You know, obviously just NDAs. That's the charmed life of the voice actor.
Well, we're trying to find ways around it. Don't worry.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I know how those probing questions go. SMT hype again. That is correct. Any day. Yeah. So that's the general. I'll let someone else plug themselves now.
All right. So Austin.
All right. I am AK Austin. You can find me on Twitter at the same handle at AK_Austin01. Yeah, this was a fun podcast, and I was very excited to meet you, Connor. It's been a pleasure, and
Nice to meet you too.
Yep, I will look forward to your future updates on Twitter.
Black Shadow.
Yeah, you've had on YouTube, Black Shadow 993. Also on Twitch, Black_Shadow_993. I've still not found the original person and broke their legs. One day I will hopefully achieve it. But yeah, it's been a great time.
Help. Let me know.
Checks in the post. Thank you very much. It's been a great time.
Kaneki, what's your outros?
Well, can you find me on Twitter and YouTube at under the name Ghoul World Order? Sure you can.
God.
Because he's on that Ken hype from Street Fighter, we know.
Yes.
Mr. Silver, what's your outro?
Yes, of course. Thank you. You can find me over on YouTube and Twitter at the Silver Gaming Network, where I'm currently playing through a lot more Resident Evil with my raging Scottish co-host. And yeah, thank you very much, Connor. I genuinely appreciate you coming on for us today. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. And I'm just jealous you've got a raging Scottish co-host. That's kind of like the dream, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
The
He is
UK
very
dream.
raging. Yes, very raging, very Scottish, very hates the English, so it's all correct, and as it should be. Yeah.
Well, if you a raging Scotsman who didn't hate the English, there'd be something wrong, right?
I would be disturbed, yes.
Yeah.
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 Just give him whiskey and haggis, and he's fine.
Oh, yeah. That's how you keep it in line.
All right. You can find me on Twitter and YouTube, Renegade Operative. I've been uploading clips of me playing RE4 randomizer, so if you want to see Leon get his head chainsawed off, then you can kindly do that. This was a fun podcast with Connor. Once again, thank you so much for joining us, and this was cool. Definitely got to do it again sometime in the future.
Sure, man. I'm down.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for having me. This was a lot of fun. I like talking to a lot of people at once. It becomes more of a conversation kind of with everyone that way.
Yeah. Honestly, like I said, we appreciate you coming on. It's been a pleasure. It's been an honor. It was a great time. Thank you.
Oh, yes. Trust me, it wasn't as much of an honor as you thought.
And we had Wesker invade the podcast several times. That's pretty awesome.
Yes, it's been awesome. I don't think I've smiled this much in a long time, not gonna lie.
Oh, good. Glad to help there.